All right, guys, you're here with Big John McCarthy and Josh Thompson. We're here in studio. We finally got you here. Bellator this weekend.
And I have not been drinking. I was not drinking the other day. I was eating street tacos. It killed me.
I had so many people say, "Yeah, his face looks a little red. Like he look a little bloodshot,
He's
a little
yelling
flush,
a
little
lot.
flush
I
in
yell
the
a lot
face."
anyways.
I was like, "Yeah, you guys gotta forget though. Like it's like 6 o'clock, 6:30 here. It's like 9:30, 10 o'clock over there. It's a time change." So. All right, so look, we promised you guys we would be doing the fan questions, and that's really what we're doing today. We're just going to answer all the fans' questions. We're going to get into it and
see
jump
if there's
into
good questions or if
there's going to be, there's going to be always bad ones. And you know what I mean by bad, right?
Oh yeah, I know what you mean by bad.
It's the ones that people think that the UFC is the sport, and it's actually just the organization, right? Yeah.
It's not?
No, it's not. It's not.
It's not called Ultimate Fighting?
No, the sport is not called Ultimate Fighting. No, it's called
Really?
It's called mixed martial arts. It's a mixture of all martial arts.
God damn it! You learn something every day.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's pretty good.
It's like when someone asks you a really dumb question, says like, "So tell me what's your worst rule in the UFC?" You mean your worst rule in MMA? Is that what you meant to say? I think that's what you meant to say. Okay, I'm sure that'll be a question like, "Hey, what's the worst rule in UFC?" And we're like, "What do you mean the worst rule in MMA?"
Let's go, Dave.
All
right. So the first question is from Beetle Gray, and he asks, "Hey guys, one topic I'd like you to discuss that was never brought up by anyone except Joe Rogan while he was announcing the fight, and only that moment was in the Maia and Usman fight. In the match, there was a point in the fight that Maia was behind Usman while standing, one hook in, and Usman basically in a wrestling guillotine, but standing, and the ref stopped it and basically took Maia's chance to win the fight. Why was it stopped?"
Because guys make mistakes. What he's talking about is I can remember the fight, and Maia at the one point, I think it was in the first round, gets a point where he gets a guillotine, but it's standing, and he's starting to try to wrap it up, and it's just not happening, and the referee ends up separating the fighters out of it, and that's where if you could pull that up, we can look at it and stuff.
Trying to see.
Is it right here? No. That's not it right there. That would.
So he's in a standing guillotine.
Yeah, and
with the arm in or with the arm out.
Arm was in.
Okay.
But it's a matter of referees are under a position of, they're sometimes they get involved in this thing of they want to make the fight exciting, and I tell guys all the time. I tell referees, you cannot make a bad fight good, but you can definitely make a good fight bad.
Yeah.
And you do not do things that are going to take away someone's opportunity, because you never know when someone, a slick guy, especially like Amaya, can all of a sudden change that grip, change what he's got, get the angle that he needs, and now we have a real submission taking place. So, this is where you'll get sometimes a referee he'll insert himself into the fight when you go, you should never have done that at that time, and it just happens.
Yeah, have you noticed that sometimes refs feel like they need to be part of the action? And they don't need to be that.
Yeah,
they don't need to do that.
What you'll really find is, I had something for everything that happened in an MMA fight. When it came to being on the ground. If I came back and I did this with you, but you wouldn't remember it, I would tell you, Josh, okay, let me explain it. If you end up underneath your opponent, okay, and you put him in guard, you got him, you grab a hold of him, you pull him in tight, you're defending yourself well, that's great. I am telling you right now, I am never going to stand you up. You are the one stalling my fight. If you want me to think about standing you up from this position, then you want to open your guard and attack your opponent. Show that he is the one trying to hold on to you.
Yeah.
That's when he's stalling on top, I will be standing you up. But if you're stalling from underneath, so there was in every situation, but anytime there was a possible submission in place, and even if the house was coming down with boos, because the fans, they don't understand how close this is.
Yeah.
I am never going to stop that and take that away from the fight.
What is your take on? I've seen a couple of refs. I can't recall, not in the UFC or in any in a bigger organization, but I've seen in some smaller shows, refs had stood people up from the back position.
Oh, Yeah.
And to myself, that's a finishing position. That's not one of those positions you should be standing people up.
I can tell you, and I've seen Herb has stood guys up when a guy's got someone's back. There's 2 times in my life of all the fights that I did that I stood someone up out of mountain. Now I've never stood anyone up out of having someone's back. Never done it. But I did stand 2 times, 2 fights. One was Frank Shamrock against Jeremy Horn. Okay, and that was a fight that was all the way back at UFC 17.
Yeah.
And Jeremy's coming in. I knew Jeremy. I knew who Jeremy was. I knew how good Jeremy was. Frank is coming into it. He's the champion. He's going to be the first fight of the night. And in being the first fight of the night, he, is looking at like this guy's going to be a nothing. They're just doing this to, build my name, and they're going to put it on this special of Frank Shamrock. And he's in the fight of his life, and Jeremy is throwing him around and taking him down. But Jeremy gets a mount position on Frank, and he just bases out, and I'm waiting. He's not doing anything. I said, Jeremy, got to do something. Jeremy, work, right? And he started to bring his hand, and he put his hand right back, and he would start to. And finally, I said, Jeremy, if you do not do something, I'm going to stand you up, right? And he just stays there. And so I had to stand him up there because there's nothing, because Frank's just holding on to him. Nothing's happening. And I stand it up, and eventually he ends up losing to a knee bar. And I went in the back afterwards, and I go, did you not hear me when I was saying? He goes, oh, absolutely, John. I heard every word you were saying. I go, well, then what in the hell were you thinking? And he looks at me, and he goes straight out. He goes, I swear to God, I'm thinking, oh, my God, I'm mounted on Frank Shamrock, and I don't want him to do anything to me. So
I could totally see that.
I just looked at him and said, got it, right? Yeah. And I just went off. And the other time, I stood Kimbo Slice. Yeah. Fighting Dada 5000, they were both exhausted. It was a horrible fight, and so that was the second time. But
that fight to me was insane though. As a fan outside,
he got knocked out by the wind.
Yeah, I know, but
I almost killed 2 guys in that fight. You think, think about it.
But they were
both.
But it was such an entertaining fight.
Oh my God, it was horrible. It was horrible. A lot of people ask me, "Is that the worst fight?" No, not even close. Not the worst fight. Not even close.
Oh man,
worst fight ever. Dan Severn versus Ken Shamrock, UFC 9. A lot of reasons for it. A lot of political things, legal issues coming in. But you watch that, it was horrible. It was better to watch paint dry on the fucking ceiling.
But to me, Dada and Kimbo, like the crowd was nuts.
Oh yeah,
it was so for me, it was just so intense.
That's UFC 6. This is a fast one. This is actually a good fight for Ken Shamrock. He gets a guillotine choke on Dan. But if you watch this, what you're going to see is when he gets the guillotine, Dan Severn tries to punch his way out of it. And at the time, you get hit to the groin. Ken used to wear a Muay Thai cup, and watch what he does with his hand when he hits him to the groin. You'll see, because he gets caught into the guillotine. Now the guillotine starts to go into place, and watch him punch with his right hand. Oh, gets out for a second, comes back. Nice wizard. But
used to wear one of those steel cups.
Oh yeah,
that's the only thing I ever wore my whole career. That's why I'm surprised, guys.
Smartest thing ever.
That they wear these plastic cups.
And you can look at you, and you can use it. Watch. He sticks his head right in the middle here. He's getting choked. Watch the right hand. Dink, and he goes, oh. That's old.
Maybe Ken's just hung like a horse. You never know, right? Oh, he just got all that.
There you go. That's Kimbo and Dada. Now that was a fight.
It was to me. It was entertaining. It was straight. We're in the entertainment business. It was entertaining.
Watch this. He missed him by a foot and a half, and he went down.
It was so funny.
Watch how close it is.
Oh,
that one actually touched right there. That's not the one. Watch it. Missed by a foot and a half, and he's going down.
He was already on his way down before that.
Both of those guys, you look at that fight, Kimbo in the back, he had 2 things. He had split his toe on his foot, and so he had this gash, and he was the biggest baby about it. He's like, oh,
yeah.
But his heart rate was so high, and it wouldn't come down. And then Dada ended up same thing, and then went into renal failure because of the loss of weight. A lot of bad things happen.
Those guys. But to me, it was an entertaining night. I get a kick out of it because here's the thing. There was so much talk going into that fight, so much hype and publicity going into that fight, that neither guy wanted to lose. And you can honestly say that they fought to the bitter end.
Oh, they fought as hard as they could.
They fought as they possibly. And now, obviously, we're not talking like, lightweight pace, but it was, but to me, I felt like for two big guys, heavier set guys, one was more muscle bound, the other one was heavier set. But I thought entertainment wise, in the entertainment business we're in, I thought it was a good fight. I thought it was entertaining as all hell. But I'm obviously a little bit biased because
you're totally biased because that was a horrible fight.
I was in. I go back to the movie Gladiator, and when he yells, "Are you not entertained?" And I was like, "Yes, I am."
Yeah, but he put on a good performance.
Yeah, whatever. Details.
Come on, Dave, give us the second one.
What's the next one?
All right, the next one is.
Can you try to speak English a little bit better? Because
shut up.
Yeah.
Hey guys, love the show. Wanted to ask a question. It seems like UFC is always scrambling to make champion versus champion pay-per-views, while at the same time fighters are also complaining they don't get paid enough money. What do you guys think about the fight card with no champions but 5 great fights in the main event? Imagine a pay-per-view with the headliner Nate Diaz, George Masvidal, Gastelum versus Darren Till, Cerrone versus Justin Gaethje, Marlon Moraes versus Corey Sandhagen, and Ben Askren versus Kevin Lee. Even without a championship headlining, these fights would be sold quite well. Imagine if every fighter in the card got a percentage of pay-per-view instead of just the champion. Everyone walks away a little bit happy, and they can reserve the champion fights for pay-per-views.
What's the question?
Those 5 fights headlining are taken or like being a pay-per-view.
Why, when they can have 5 separate pay-per-views and make probably about the same amount of money? They'll take each one of those fights and make them a headliner, and then have a bunch of other fights that are on, maybe 1 or 2 other good fights, and they'll just do that because the way I feel about this is once they did the ESPN deal, there's no reason for them to have huge headliners anymore. Nope. They'll have the occasional one here and there like they did with DC and Yoel Romero and Costas and all those. Great card. But you got to remember, though, where that card was. It was in L.A. They need to come with big fights. Otherwise, no one's going to come to that event. In L.A., when you do shows in New York, Chicago, and L.A., you have to come with big cards. If you don't, people are like, I'd rather go to the club. I'd rather go to restaurants. I'd rather go.
They have a lot of choices.
They have tons of other choices to do things, and there's no reason for them to go to the card. And that to me is when you're talking about a card like that, Dave, and when he's asking a question like that, to me, they would rather break those guys up, maybe put 1 or 2 on one card, and they're still going to get paid the same amount of money because they did the deal with ESPN. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. As far as the ESPN deal changed everything, because I don't think people kind of really get what occurred with that deal and with the ESPN Plus, because you got to figure the UFC has been, from its inception, from 1993, it was a pay-per-view model that was supporting it. That's what happened, if you go way back when John McCain started his little thing about human cockfighting and everything, and we started to get pulled off of cable providers. That was almost the death toll for the UFC. And, it was Bob Meyerowitz who owned it at the time. He was going into his and trying to keep it alive. And he was robbing Peter to pay Paul. He was owing a lot of people money and, just trying to keep it going. When Zuffa, Lorenzo Fertitta and Frank Fertitta and Dana come in, then that pay-per-view model really wasn't there for them because there just wasn't that much. They finally get it back on pay-per-view, and that's where they were going to make their big money. And where they made their big money was off of doing the Ultimate Fighter, because you can go all the way back. I always say that UFC 40, which was Ken Shamrock versus Tito Ortiz, first time, and that was the show that I knew it's going to survive. At least in my opinion, my head, I was like, they did 150,000 pay-per-view buys.
That was huge for them.
Okay, that was huge for them. Okay, and they sold out the MGM Grand at the time
there in that arena.
And it was just a big feel and the electricity of the crowd, and it was like, it's gonna make it. But it's still, they were losing money. Yeah. You got to figure at that point, they were close to $40 million in the hole. They got to $44 million in the hole and went to $54 million in the hole when Lorenzo Fertitta made the decision, I'm going to pay for all the production and for the time on Spike TV to do The Ultimate Fighter. Dana White did not want to do that.
Oh, wow.
He did not. Oh, dude, I think this is a terrible idea. You got to figure Lorenzo had done it's called American Casino with Craig Piligian.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about the Green Valley Ranch Casino that he and his brother owned.
Beautiful spot.
And it is a beautiful spot. And they had this whole reality TV show that Craig Piligian was doing it. And then Lorenzo decided with, using Craig Piligian as his company, his production company, and doing The Ultimate Fighter, I'm going to pay for it. And I'm going to pay for the time. And it cost him $10 million. They were $54 million in the hole. And then you had that season with, a bunch of guys, you knew very well,
yes.
Koscheck and Lieben and Swick and everybody. And then, that big
Bobby
fight
Southworth.
with, Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner. That's what turned it around.
Was it that fight that catapulted them, or was it? I know that fight had a lot to do with it. I'm definitely not going to knock that fight, but I'm saying that first season was the best season I think they ever had. Just the Bobby Southworth being drugged back into the
back into the
Chris
sauna.
Lieben, being drugged back into the sauna. Chris Lieben, the bed peeing thing, Koscheck beating him, and all the other drama and all the alcohol and drinking that went along with it. They took alcohol out. I think, was it that season? They took it out after that season.
Well, they took it out and then realized, oh, no, we need it because, oh, my God, we need these guys to act like fools.
Yeah.
But it was, it was that season. They give a lot of credit to that fight. It wasn't the fight. It was that people finally got to see that fighters are people.
Yeah.
That they're humans and they have emotions, they have feelings, they're stupid at times, they're very smart about certain things. And it gave them someone to grab onto and like, and it gave them someone to hate. And, there were guys that filled the card on both of those.
Yep.
Koscheck, look at
he came heel, born and raised to be the heel.
He came out of that season. Yep. He would walk into an arena and the entire arena would boo.
Yep.
And he took it well and used it and made a lot of money off of it.
Yeah,
So
exactly. But then you have guys like Chris Lieben who acted like total jackasses on the show.
Total.
And they ended up falling in love with him.
Absolutely.
People loved him
because
all the
they
drama
looked at him like he was real.
Yes, very true. And Costas was the opposite of that.
Yeah.
But I thought overall, to me, I'm definitely not knocking the Forrest and Stephan fight. That to me, I was there live in that night and watching it. It was
It was a great fight.
What a fight. What a fight.
But the thing that people say, this is where people lose it. They go, that was the greatest fight in UFC history. Not even close.
No.
Okay, and look at, you have to understand at that time, the level of those guys and what they were doing was limited, okay? Yeah. And not that it wasn't a great fight. It was two guys that matched up and went after it. Phenomenal fight, fun to watch, not even close. To what was the best fight.
Well, it depends on what your idea of what the best fight is. Entertainment-wise, I put it up there and probably not my Mount Rushmore, but it's up there. It's up there, though. I'd say in the top 10, though. When I was sitting there live
not
watching.
Even close.
And what I'm saying, in entertainment of me watching a fight live and just being in the arena, the excitement and the energy in that little tiny-ass arena.
Cox Pavilion.
Yeah, that little tiny arena we were at, I remember and recall how the crowd was going nuts, and those are all things that I still remember and I still carry with me. Yeah. That's what makes those going to events live so important. I think if you can't duplicate that sitting in front of a TV and watching it in HD and paying $75. I'd rather pay a little bit more and get a ticket in the arena and get to hear the music and the walkouts and the energy and the crowd. And those are the things that to me make fights good in the top 10. I'm like, sure, they're great on TV, but when I'm watching fights, now don't get me wrong, there's been a lot of fights that I've sat and been like, oh my God, those are great fights. Oh, yeah. But that's one of those fights to me. I would say probably in my top 10, maybe towards the end or latter end of it, like say 9 and 10. But it's up there, though.
I could pull a whole lot out there.
But I'd say it's, but you've also covered a lot more fights than I have. I'm not trying.
Maybe.
Let's be real. I think you work every weekend, sometimes in other countries all around the world, reffing fights. So I think you got the nod on me on this. But I'm talking about just strictly fights that I've been around and been able to watch live. Yeah, that's definitely, I think, in that top 10. And I think also, too, with the fact that I hold it probably a little bit higher because I felt like that was, even though it was part of season 1 and we just talked about it, not holding the sport to making what the sport is, but it had something to do with it. And I always try to put some importance behind that. And I'm a huge Forrest Griffin fan, so I love Forrest, man.
He's funny.
He's one of my.
He is hysterical.
He is. Have you ever watched him spar?
Oh yeah.
Have you ever heard him yell at his coaches while he's sparring?
Oh yeah.
Coach him.
Oh, are you kidding?
It's the greatest thing. He came to AKA and was like training, and he's like, "Hey, I would if you guys would all just shut the fuck up." And everyone's like,
he says it all the time.
And it was like the first day he came to AKA, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, I guess he doesn't want to be coached anymore." But it was great. And then afterwards, he's like, "Hey guys, I just don't like to be coached when I get it. I understand what I got to do. I'm getting my ass kicked right now. I'm trying to fucking figure it out, But I get it. I understand. But to me, that was one of those moments where.
Forrest always had this personality that people looked at him like he was this funny, goofy guy. He's not.
No.
He's not like that at all. That's not who he is.
Nope.
But he can play that if he wants.
Yeah.
But he's a sharp, smart dude, man. He's got it going. He is a thinker.
The story with him after he won, remember they gave him that Scion. And he drove that thing until it fucking the wheels fell off.
Bart.
That thing, I like the inside door panels were missing, like it'd been wrecked, and it was like people had hit, like it was all dinged up. Had like marker all over the dashboard. I think his kid or someone got a hold of a marker. And anyways, I remember someone showing me a picture of it, and he's like, "Yeah, this is Forrest, like his old Scion, the one they gave him."
They'll keep it, man.
He rode it till the fucking wheels fall off. He was the guy though too because he got so many shirts when he was training all the time. People from what was that supplement? Zions and some other companies. They were all Cobb 28. All those companies would send him so many shirts. Right? He would just train them once and throw them away because he had so many clothes. He's just like, forget it, man. He's like. I would wash him like, hey, it's a break. He'd open it. I see him watch him, open it up out of the package, put it on for training, sweating it, and just throw it away. Didn't bother even trying to wash stuff. It was to me, those are moments that I remember when I talk about fighters. There's little things in my memory bank that you always just store off. And you're like, I remember that. That's pretty funny.
The other thing I remember off the Ultimate Fighters at the end, because they had Chuck and Randy were the two coaches.
Yep.
And at the end of it, they gave each of them these decked out Hummers.
Yeah.
The old Hummer H2,
yep.
And they had UFC embroidered on it, giant sound systems. They're all decked out, and that thing Randy got that thing stolen out of the same parking lot twice.
They're just waiting for him to park.
I was just waiting. We're going to take that sucker again, right?
Right after Chuck got his, I went down to Slow and I stayed at his house for probably like a week or so. And he's like, "Hey, will you do me a favor?" He's like, "Will you run down and I ordered a bunch of sushi. Will you go down and pick it up for me?" He's like, "Just take my Hummer." So I jumped in. He's like, "Hey, do not curb those fucking rims." He's like, "You curb those rims?" He's like, "Don't even bring it back." I was like, you should have seen me. I was like you
parked
know,
about that far away from the curb.
Yeah, like your dad tells you like, "Don't fucking wreck my car." You're like, I was driving like 20 miles an hour and slow, just everywhere, like making sure no one's around me. But it was pretty funny. Anyways, story I had to tell real quick. What's another one?
This one's from Paul Mayer. One for Big John. Did you ever get anxious reffing a fight? And if so, which fight were you most anxious for?
You know what? It's I talk to people all the time as far as other referees. Referees go through all kinds of things, and it's one of the things that repetitions. How many times you do something is what's so important for a referee, because you get into a rhythm with it, and you get into you're doing it so often, you see things just clearer, better, and it makes you just a better referee. But I talk about all the time that when you'll see a lot of times referees, they have that big fight, and you'll see the fighters are coming in and the referee is standing there, and the big difference between like Herb Dean and me at the time, and now like Mark Goddard will say, is when I had a big fight, it didn't matter, if it was Conor McGregor against, Eddie Alvarez at Madison Square Garden, my heart rate was probably about 70, 71, 72 beats per minute, which is elevated a little bit because, you got that buzz going on, but, it's being able to stay calm is going to make you better. When you get a lot of guys, they get that big fight and you don't realize it, but you can see them as they're standing there. Their heart rate's at about 140 beats per minute, 145 beats per minute. They're scared. And it's not they're scared of they don't want to make a mistake.
Yeah.
They know the significance behind this. And so they put that pressure on them, and it takes them time hopefully the fight goes past the first round because they'll settle down. Mm-hmm. But if it doesn't and things happen fast, that's when you see mistakes being made because their brain is going so fast because their heart rate's going fast.
But let me intervene real quick.
Yeah.
Is when you talk about when you did the Eddie Alvarez and Conor McGregor fight, when you talk about that, you said 70, your heart was 7 beats per minute. But that's because you've had years and years of experience. These guys that have been reffing or haven't been to the same level.
You
and also
can still, I can tell you that the last time that I can remember feeling a buzz, being in the cage, no matter what cage it was at, but we'll say that it was at the UFC. Conor McGregor was going to fight Jose Aldo, and when I walked in the cage, it was good. And Jose Aldo was the second one coming out, but when Conor came out, the lights go down and they do that whole thing, and I always just stand and just look around at the crowd, and I felt a buzz, and I was like, well, that's unusual, and then it just went away. But that was the last time that I can tell you. But when I first started reffing, dude, I was scared to death because I was scared I was going to make a mistake, and there wasn't a whole lot to make mistakes about back then as far as the rules. But I didn't want someone to tap and then I didn't see it or something, and so everything is about those repetitions.
Interesting. Yeah, because I just feel like some of the refs are still, like I look at what's his name, Herzog.
Jason?
Jason Herzog. He's still young.
Yes.
And he has. I mean, he's been doing it for what, 5, 6 years?
Oh no, Jason's been doing it now. I'd say
maybe it has been that long.
12 years.
12 years. Okay, so a long time. But I mean, like, still not to the level of what you've been doing it for. So I think. Do you think he's still? And I'm not saying just simply him, but because he seems like he's handled it a lot better. I remember the Strikeforce days.
Yeah.
And I remember him being like, it was very much like, okay, Josh, okay, this, okay. It was like, but now you walk through the hall and you see him. You can tell when you refs feel a little more comfortable with you.
Sure.
Hey, what's up, Josh? And they say hi real quick. But whereas before it was almost like, okay, so I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do, and they're like, all right, I get it, buddy. I get it.
Well, the whole thing with talking to the fighters before, I started that back. If you look at what guys do in MMA refereeing, look at a lot of it comes from stupid here because I was the first guy kind of doing it, and I realized what was going to work for me, what was important, and going in the back and talking to the fighters individually. Because the very first UFC I did was UFC 2. I was at UFC 1. I was there for the rules meeting of UFC 1, which was a comedy. But UFC 2, I was in charge of the rules thing, and I'm sitting there and I'm hitting this podium thing, and I realized this guy's fighting this guy. They're not listening to me. No. This is stupid. So then I started. I'm going to go in the back and talk to each fighter individually. And it's going to take me more time. It's going to be more work. It's going to be more effective. Yeah. And then that just became part of what I did. And then as I taught guys, but like you talk about Jason, the first time I ever worked with Jason Herzog, and I had seen him, and my wife used to call him the purple glove boy because the palm. He used to wear. He was being different, and it's like, hey, this isn't about you being different. Yeah, you're supposed to be invisible if you can. But I worked with Jason at a King of the Cage. And afterwards, he comes up to me and he says, hey, John, is there anything that you think that I should do different? And I told him, I said, yeah. And he said, Jason, you got to stop hopping around
and change your gloves.
I said, I said, this is not. And we talked about that, but he used to do this. He really exaggerated hopping, and and I said, look, you need to start walking. It's going to make you more relaxed, more calm. It's going to help with your decision making. I said, it's just part of, learning. And he looks, he goes, I don't think I can do that. I said, okay. I'm not here to force it on you, right? So the next time we worked, he goes, John, is there anything? I said, dude, you didn't want to listen to me the first time. What do you want now? Yeah. But we became very good friends. And I've done a lot with Jason. And I'll tell you right now, Jason Herzog probably makes the best decisions as an MMA referee.
Interesting.
Right now there is. Jason Herzog's outstanding. Mike Beltran is outstanding. Mark Goddard is outstanding. There's some really good officials out there that are making great
all the ones
choices.
You didn't bring up, right? They're going to send you an email or a text.
I can't.
What a jerk.
Leon Roberts is a guy from England. I like guys that are doing it for the right reasons. And it's one of the things that drives me crazy is guys that they want to be somebody. Mm-hmm. You know, and I work with a guy named Jaron Villel, and he's the reason I work with him is, you know, when he came to one of my classes to learn, and I realized quickly, hey, this guy's smart, and he had all the right things about it. He was doing it because, first off, he was a fighter. He had fought, and, you know, he wrestled. You know, he wrestled in Canada, so you can't say the wrestling was that great. But so I'm just kidding, Canada. But, you know, the level of wrestling is not quite what it is here in the U.S. But he had wrestled there. He fought MMA. He fought, you know, kickboxing, and then became, you know, he kind of got pushed into being a referee, and he wanted to, you know, hey, if I'm going to do this, I want to be good at it. And he was super smart, and I became, you know, a guy that I just started, you know, taking him, and he kept coming back, and then I started having him teach with me. And you can see just the progression of these guys, but there's certain guys out there, they're so smart about the sport. One of the things I really hate is you hear all this stuff about people have no idea how skilled those referees are at the martial arts. You know, Jaron, he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Mark Goddard, he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Jason Herzog is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Mike Beltran is a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Look at these guys, they know what they're looking at. These people are good, you know, and they don't get, you know, a lot of people, you know, obviously, you know, I hear Dominic Cruz, you know, obviously Mark, you know, Goddard doesn't know anything about wrestling. Mark Goddard wrestles to this day, okay? Yes, he knows wrestling. It's just because you don't like his decision. Okay, but look at all of the top guys, all of them. Herb doesn't, you know, Herb used to fight, but doesn't, you know, do the things like he did before. But he still trains, and all of them train, you know, in San Jose here. You'll see they'll all get together, and they're on the mat, and they're training, and they're rolling together because that's what keeps them up.
That goes into my next, since I know we're supposed to be answering fans' questions, but my question, though, is do you think that the avenue for fighters to become referees, because I've seen Frank Trigg, seen some other guys from back in the day, what's it called, Shaolin, he was doing it for a while, like, is that a good avenue, or is it for them, or is it something that potentially, like, they sometimes recall them being fighters could get in the way, interfere with that?
Well, it's you know, there's two parts. I can tell you that, you know, out of all the classes that I've done, I've probably had, I don't know, in the area of maybe, let's say 40 ex-professional fighters, some very well known, you know, some like Trigg, well known, some of them not so well known, but, you know, I did their fights before, something like that, have come and done the training, and most of the time they fail. I fail them all. Okay, and one of their biggest problems is they think I know MMA. I know these rules. I know this, and they don't. And then they don't understand that there's a mechanics behind being a referee. No different than there is a mechanics behind being a fighter. There's ways of using your feet to get yourself in and out. It's not that we just move our feet. Yeah. Okay. And so it's the same thing with being that referee. And so a lot of them will come in and they have this perception, I'll be great at this. And then I'm the one telling them, hey, you're not great at it. And this is where the problem is. One of the things they do is a lot of them tend to bring in their own identity as far as this is what I was good at. And they'll see somebody doing something and it's working, but it's not the way they would do it. And so they're like, oh, it was crap. It's like, was it working? Yeah, but it was really sloppy. It was, you know, it's like, stop. You don't change that. You know, I don't care if he's doing it like you would do it. I care that, is it working? Is he working? Is it being effective? That's what you're looking for. And so they have to get out of the mentality that they had as a fighter. A lot of them, the other part is they will let guys get beat on when it's clear this guy wants out of the fight. You know, and look there's many times guys are not going to do this. You know, they're not going to quit, but they're waiting for you to stop the fight.
Yep. They'll turn over and give their back, try to get choked, or they'll just curl up in the fetal
curl
position.
Up and put their hands in, and they've been told in the back, hey, you start to do this, you're gonna hear me saying your name. Hey, move, get out, fight back. Yeah. You don't do that, I'm stopping. They know, and they're waiting for it. And the guy who was the fighter will, you know, well, he wasn't getting hit. He wasn't getting hurt that bad. Yeah. He wasn't getting hit that hard. I've been hit harder. Yeah, I don't care how hard you've been hit.
It's not about you.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what's got to change. And, you know, that was Frank Trigg was a guy, he took a lot of time. I failed Frank twice, and then I almost failed him the third time. And I said, all right, you're going to come every week. And I just took him through and made him do things over and over. But one of his biggest problems was he couldn't read a fight to judge a fight. He really had problems in remembering what was going on. So I gave him a system, and he's really good at it now as far as judging. But he really had this thing about letting guys go. And the last thing I did, and it was probably a shitty thing to do, but I sat him down in front of a TV and I said, hey, we're going to watch a fight. Third round. I want you to watch this fight. And I put it in, and it's him.
Yeah.
Him against Robbie Lawler. And he took, Yuji Shimada was the referee of that fight, and Yuji let Frank get fucking killed. And he looked at me like, what the fuck are you doing, John? I said, watch the goddamn fight. I want you to watch what the referee does. And afterwards he goes, I get it. He goes, that fight changed me. And I said, yeah. I said, and you're responsible when you're the referee. Mm-hmm. I go, could that fight have been stopped sooner? I said, were you done? And he goes, yeah. And I said, okay, this is what I need from you. And he just started to get it. And he put in a ton of time. People have no idea how much money he put towards it, as far as he was living in Hawaii, flying to California to do amateur fights to make nothing. Okay, so this is the real problem for fighters, is fighters are usually looking for something that can be that job. Mm-hmm. And being an MMA judge or referee is not going to be your job. You're going to make, if I asked, Jason Herzog, how much money did you make last year? It's probably in the $20,000 range.
Oh, wow.
Okay, if I asked, another major guy, the guys that are probably making, the most money is going to be Herb. Mark Goddard's going to make a lot because he's going all over the place, but still not what people think. So
yeah, I was thinking like somewhere, if they're making, I would imagine like $1,500, maybe $2,000 a show.
That's a good night.
That's a good night. But then they got to be doing. I thought they were doing shows every weekend.
Yeah, but see, a lot of the shows, if you're doing a UFC or a Bellator here in California, and it's a championship fight, you're gonna make $1,900 if you're the referee for that championship fight. Now that's all the fights you're doing. You're getting the same pay. Mm-hmm. But if you get that main event fight, your pay is going to be, since you do the championship fight, it's going to be $1,900. All right. But that's how often do you get those fights?
Yeah, I don't know.
And a lot of the fights you're doing here, you're getting $350, $400. That's your night.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of them are a lot
Didn't
less.
know that.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. I thought it was always like a flat fee of $1,000 or $1,500.
Not even close.
Every show.
And the other part of it is you don't even know what you're going to make unless you're doing that championship fight. You have no idea what they're going to pay you, because it switches. Here in California, it's based upon, is it on TV? How many tickets were sold? And your pay will be adjusted based upon all of those factors. So, you could go to a show and think, I'll make $500 and you get paid $200.
Man, you guys need a referees union.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I'm kidding. Next question.
Really Real asks one to each of you guys. One in Big John is, John, since you're a part of the Bellator team, do you expect UFC Dana to treat you the same? And will you ever go back to refereeing for UFC and other promotions? And then Josh's question is, have you left the sport with any serious injuries, trauma? Do you feel it was worth it? And would you do it if you could go back and do it all again?
Go.
Yeah, I think every fighter leaves with serious trauma. We leave brain damage for sure. There's no doubt about it. My memory is nowhere like it used to be.
Especially after the last fight.
Right. But it's okay. But like the things that I can do to Dave later after this show's over.
Yeah. There's certain good things about being the fighter.
Yeah, just realistically, like there's a lot of damage. I think for all athletes, not just fighters. I mean, I'm sure maybe there are a little bit more for fighters, but I think for all athletes. I mean, I've been around some pro NFL players and some basketball players, and they've had knee surgeries multiple times over. They've had ankle surgeries. They've had most of them have torn their Achilles. For basketball players, football players, same thing. Soccer players as well. I mean, I've had shoulder surgery, wrist surgery, twice on my wrist. 3 times on each knee, but not ACL or MCL, just all meniscus. I broke my patella in a fight, so I have 2 screws that go through my knee cap itself and squeeze it back together. Had ankle surgeries 3 times in 16 months. That's what kept me out against Gil, the second fight, for so long. There's a lot of things. I've got sciatica problems, from all the jiu-jitsu, being upside down, backwards, all those other things. That's a big thing. And I have noticed just as of probably in the last month and a half, my neck's been kind of giving me problems, but I can't tell if that's from all the flights all around the world or if it's just from just fighting. I think it's a little bit of both probably. But would I do it all again? There's no doubt in my mind I would do it all again. And we've had this conversation. Look, as an athlete, as long as you're smart with your money, there's not another job in the world I would have ever wanted to do. I loved everything about it. I got to see all the things that I wanted to, all the things I want to see. And I'm continuing to see all the things I want to see. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of chance. I'm probably going to Tel Aviv. We're doing Milan.
No, you're not probably going to Tel Aviv. You're going to Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv, Milan, all around.
You're going to be a resident of the UK.
Of the UK, pretty much. I mean, realistically, those are all things that if I had a 9-to-5 working anywhere else, I would have never been able to see these places. I've been all around the world. I've been to South Africa. I've been to Asia. I've done 2 movies in Asia, but that was all based off because I was an athlete. And I'm very happy with everything that I've been able to do. I own a beautiful gym. I have great members. I have great people around me. Like you and I would never have met. And it's like we have a show now. It's like these are things that are exciting to me. Like when I look back and think about all the things that I could have done, I could have been a total fuck up. And,
tell me about it.
And it's just
I don't mean you. I mean me too.
No, yeah. I mean, I've done some time in jail. I've been in a lot of trouble. I got in a lot of fights when I was a kid.
I can't believe they let you out.
You guys could have met then.
Yeah, we could have met. Yeah, we could have met.
I can't believe they let you out.
Yeah, I know. Right? It's those things. It's those things that I look back and think. Because at the time I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I got out of college and I was like, "Look, I don't want to work in a 9-to-5. I don't want to I don't want to work for someone else either. Realistically, being a fighter, you do work for other people, but you also make your schedule. If you want to fight, you fight. If you want to go to the gym and train, you go to the gym and train.
If you don't have
no one's holding your damn hand.
Well, I always tell guys that are going to be fighters or are professional. I give them 3 rules. And training isn't even one of them. I tell them. I said, look, first thing is, if you're going to be a professional fighter, make weight. If you agreed to being, signing your name on that contract and telling that promoter, yeah, I can do that, that's your responsibility. You owe that to the promoter. You owe it to your opponent. Mm-hmm. Second thing is be on time. Don't be late because every fighter is having to come down and be in that bus or somewhere or be it that way. And they're all waiting on you, trust me, they'll remember you as, hey, you're the dipshit that made me wait, or I was cutting weight and I was hungry and I was dying and I had to wait because of you. Be on time. And the third thing is, hey, when you fight, give it everything you have. Mm-hmm. People are paying to see you fight. That's your job, so go out and give them what they, paid for. Now, I'm not telling you have to go out and get hurt, but go out and give it everything you have, I'm not even telling you have to train, even though I think it's really smart.
It's important.
It's very important. But, here's your 3 things. So
yeah, for me, I feel like, and your very first one was making weight. And the reason why I think that's probably the most important, or right there with number 2 for me, would be number 1 would be making weight, is because that's the fight that got me signed to the UFC back in the day. When I got a call on 2 weeks' notice. Philip Perez was one of my teammates. He got knocked out in training, and I ended up having to fight Kid Yamamoto. So I fought in that in a show over in Hawaii called Shogun, and there was Dwayne Ludwig, Yves Edwards, myself, Pete Spratt, Cabbage Carrera, Sharuto, all those. We were all on that card. There was basically the Who's, Robbie Lawler. We all got signed in the hotel lobby from the Ala Moana there right after the contracts were there. By the time I got home, UFC apparel, UFC gear, all this stuff, right? But
life was good.
Yeah, I took that fight on 2 weeks' notice because Philip Perez got knocked out. But I was almost 170. I had to make 143. Made the 143 in 2 weeks, and that changed the game for me because that catapulted me into the biggest organization I could get myself into at the time. Yeah. And my relationship at the time that showed the UFC, that showed Dana and Joe that were there watching the fights live, that, hey, this guy just took the fight on 2 weeks' notice against Kid Yamamoto, who was on
considered number one in the world at the time.
And I cut down to 143. Sure, the fight didn't go. I got hit him in the groin, so he couldn't continue. But they were impressed with the fact that I made the weight in 2 weeks' notice, and they were impressed with the fact that it was a good fight up until then. And so those are things that I feel is 100% important. The second thing I like to tell fighters, and I probably don't even have a third, is when you think you're in shape, you're not. Do more cardio. I think my biggest thing is people feel like the need, and I've worked with a couple friends that they were really good. But when they got to the upper echelon of fighters, they were never in good enough shape to compete with them, because they weren't relaxed enough. They were never in that. They just couldn't go the distance. So when you think you're in good enough shape, there's nothing you can do in training that will make you, that will simulate a real fight. You can't prepare for that. You need to make sure that you're pushing yourself every single day in that cardio session, every single day in your rounds. You can be smart about it, but you still got to push the pace. And I train with a lot of guys that's their mentality. From Khabib to DC to Cain Velasquez, John Fitch. John Fitch is one of the guys that just never had the most talent. He was not the most athletic when you walked into the room.
He worked his ass off, though.
But he was a fucking hard worker, man. Yep. And I mean, like, you look at him now, and I continuously just think he's 41, probably about to be 42, and I just think to myself, you're a guy that he carved his own way, his own destiny, right to where he wanted to be.
Hard work.
Yep. All hard work. It just stuck with his game plan. Sure, maybe they weren't the most exciting, but I pat him on the back every time I see him, because he's somebody that, like, when I always knew he'd step in that cage, he was in good enough shape to push someone to the breaking point. And that right there goes a long way.
But when you're looking at an element of fighting, that's what people don't get. That's such a huge and important element, to be able to push something. This is what makes Tony Ferguson such a monster, is he can break you. Mm-hmm. He pushes you to the point your heart rate it's elevating to the point where you can't continue on, and now he's pushing at that, and you fall off the cliff, and he wins the fight because he beat you with cardio.
Yep.
And it's crazy. The question for me was, am I ever going to referee another UFC fight? No, absolutely not. Not happening. Yeah. I'm retired. Yeah. Look I have a great place with this company, Bellator MMA, who I love. I love the people I work with, even Josh.
Yeah.
Okay. I am having so much fun. I'm learning so much. This is, I look at it when you talk about, your career. I'm one of the luckiest guys there is. This is my third career. Okay. You can look and say, I was a police officer in LA, and I did that for 23 years. I was a referee where I got to do the greatest fights ever for basically 25 years. And so I retired from it because, I have injuries. If you're going to be part of this sport, you're going to have to wrestle. You're going to have to do jiu-jitsu. You're going to have to spar, because you have to know what it's like, and you have to be that person. And look at mine. I'm a mess. I've had three ACLs. I've had, so many operations. It's ridiculous. My neck's been operated on 3 times. You pay a price for it. Would I change any of it? Never.
Yeah.
It was the greatest thing ever. I am so lucky I was in the right place at the right time with the right people, just fell into it. But, the refereeing days, they're done. You gotta be able to walk away.
Do you miss it, though?
Absolutely, every time.
Really?
Because knowing there got a point, and anyone can make a mistake, and I definitely could make a mistake, even though I never made one with you, no matter what you said. No, I'm just kidding. It's being able to make the right call and knowing exactly where you're going to go and how you're going to handle something when no one else has a clue.
Yeah.
And I got this. And you're going to just do it a certain way, and no one will know what you're doing, but you mold this thing and you manipulate it to the point where everyone goes, yeah. Mm-hmm. But there's always that one that's sitting there waiting for you. And I tell guys all the time, I would go up to a referee that had a hard fight, something bad happened. Hey, thank you. I'm glad that happened to you and not to me, because I just learned from what happened, and now this is what you need to do, and this is what you learn from it. And I've had those, Yoel Romero against Tim Kennedy. You look at what occurred there. Actually, I was stuck. It wasn't Yoel's people like people thought. It wasn't, Tim did certain things, but it wasn't. I felt bad for Tim because Tim got screwed. But
so explain, people that haven't seen the fight, explain what happened.
Oh my God, what happened in that was, look at Tim Kennedy almost takes Yoel Romero out at the end of the second round. Yeah. Now he did a little bit of a grab on the arm. I didn't see it. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say, oh yeah, I saw it. I couldn't see it, but almost puts Yoel out. One of the last shots that he throws, it slices Yoel with about a 2-inch gash over his left eye. It's a good cut.
Yeah.
Right at the end of that's the third round right there. So it would be at the end of the second round. Go back just a little bit. Let's go back. Okay. So what happens is he makes it through, and Tim right at the end of the second round, when I stop it, Tim actually thought I was stopping the fight, thinking he won because he didn't hear the bell.
Yeah.
But the bell goes off. I stopped the round. Tim looks at me. I said, "No." I said, "That's the end of the round," and goes. And at that point, here's where he hurts him right here. You can see him hurt him. That's just extra.
He just stops right there.
But I call in the ringside physician right away. Okay, and the reason I do is because Yoel, he was wobbled, and then I got the cut. Well, the UFC cut man comes in because the UFC pays for the cut men to be there, and I wanted to make sure. I was worried more about Tim's mentality and thinking, oh, I won the fight. Oh, now I didn't, and so I went over to his corner. I told the ringside physician, hey, check on him. I'll be right with you. I go over and tell Greg Jack, hey, that was the end of the round. Yes, you hurt him, but you got a third round coming up. Get yourself ready for the third round, right? And I go over, and the ringside physician meets me, and he tells me, he says, John, he's fine. He says, cut man's taking care of the cut. He says, he's talking. He says, no problem at all. I said, okay. So he goes off, and about this time, the cut man, everyone's getting the whistle, and they're going out, and I go over to Yoel, and he's got a giant blob of Vaseline, and it's streaked all the way back, and it's sitting on his ear too. And I'm like, Charlie Anzalone was the inspector for Nevada, and I tell Charlie, get the cut man in here to get that off.
You can't take it off?
I can.
Okay.
But if I open up the cut, what am I doing? If I take and I try to wipe it off and the cut opens up, stupid here just created the problem. So I want the cut man to come in and do it. Cut man doesn't come back in. About this time, Tim Kennedy's coming across the case, say, hey, what's going on? And so I'm now taking care of, get back to your corner. I'm going to start in a second. And by the time now, Charlie Angelo has brought in not the cut man, he's brought in Yoel's corner man, who's sitting there starting to wipe him down. I grab the towel out of that guy's hand. I get out. I take the Vaseline off. Cut opens up. Right? And I'm like, son of a bitch. And the whole thing took 28 seconds. Okay. Now, normally, everyone thinks it's a 1-minute break. Normally, in a fight that's on TV, here's the last sequence of he's hurt. He's almost got him out. That's the end of the round. And what is normally thought of as a minute is normally about a minute 13 to a minute 15 is what it normally takes because we still have to wait until the production people are done and they give us this cue to start the fight. And it's normally somewhere 113, 115. It went to 128 before I could start it. So he got extra time. Did that screw over Tim? Possibly, yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
But the big thing was, why didn't you disqualify him? Why didn't you take points from him? I couldn't. It wasn't his corner. Yeah. It was the UFC's corner cut man that created that problem. And I went to Mark Ratner right away. I said, it was your motherfucking guy that's causing me the problem. And this was, and this is the difference. It's no different than, there's levels of referees. Stitch I never would have had that problem with Stitch.
Yeah.
I never would have had that problem with Don House. I never would have had that problem with, it was a newer guy, there's pressure, and he created a problem. Not trying to create the problem, but that's what ended up happening. And
that sucks.
Yep. So Jason Herzog first, he says, thank God that happened to you.
Yeah.
He goes, I learned so much from that.
That's
I said,
hilarious.
thank you.
Next question.
All
right. Nicolette Dene asks, what do you guys think the UFC is going to do with the women's featherweight division with Cyborg gone? In my opinion, if they dissolve it, it's going to hurt someone like Aspen Ladd who's having trouble making 135.
It's the real question is, if you go back and you look at what the UFC did with Chris, and I know everyone's going to sit there and say I'm being a homer because Chris is now signed to Bellator. Look, this has nothing to do with who she signed with or anything. When Chris was fighting for Invicta, okay, and I did a number of Chris's fights, the problem is people are saying this, Chris had problems making weight at 145. Never. Not once.
Nope.
She always made 145 and never had a problem. Where did she have a problem?
35.
Which the UFC wanted to get her to 135. So they went and gave her 2 fights, Leslie Smith and then Lena Landsberg at 140. That 5-pound difference killed her. Yeah. And look at, if you're cutting that extra
the
5 pounds.
5 pounds is the worst.
Oh my God. And that 5 pounds drove her to the point she goes, I can't do this. So, because the UFC was not trying to do a featherweight division. They wanted her to go down into the bantamweight. And she couldn't do it. So then, we have this fighter. And so we've got to create something. So then they decide, okay, we're going to do a championship fight. Chris wins the championship. Well, first it was Holly Holmes. She fights Jermaine Durandamy. Durandamy wins it, doesn't want to fight Chris, comes up with the excuse. And look I'm not saying Chris at one time got busted here in California, okay, for PED use, okay? How many years has she gone being tested by USADA, being clean the entire time? Look did she make a mistake? She made a mistake. I'll say right now, you screwed up. Yeah. But I can't sit there and call her, hey, you're a dirty fighter. No, she's proved now for the last, 6 years, she's a clean fighter. Okay, so it's a matter of they now have lost her. They have their champion, and the other part is, people are talking about Chris didn't want to fight Amanda. That's Dana's, comment. And look Dana is a promoter who's trying to protect his product, and his product is the UFC. And so he's going to try to, if I can't sign this person because they're not happy with me or whatever it is, and they're going to go somewhere else, I'm going to try to diminish them as much as I can to say, you know what, we were just done with her. All right. Was he done with her? Absolutely not.
No.
All right. The reason she didn't want to sign that contract with them for one fight against Amanda is if she wins,
she's stuck there.
She's stuck there and she doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to be with someone that she just personally doesn't get along with. Mm-hmm. And there's fighters that love Dana and there's fighters that hate Dana. Okay, and that's just, that's part of being the promoter. And, I don't know how Scott Coker does it because everyone seems to love him.
Yep.
Okay, but, this is, what it is. And so if the featherweight division for the UFC right now, they've got Amanda, but they just don't have. They've got, Spencer, who Cyborg just beat. They don't have a lot of people. And so I do see, there's a possibility because there's just not a lot of quality big girls fighting out there at the bigger weights. And now you got PFL doing 155.
Which I heard they're getting rid
with
of.
Kayla. Well, they're going to...
Nope, I heard they're getting rid of that whole Sarah Kaufman, Kayla. I heard that's all gone. This is the last time they're doing it.
Really?
Yep. That's what I just heard. Yeah, there's just no.
There's no one there. Well,
there's no one there, and then on top of it,
it's like super heavyweights in men.
But there's really no interest in it.
And it's because the quality of fighters. You may have that one.
Yep.
But you just don't have that overall depth. This is what makes 155 for men and 170 and 145. So it's hard to be a professional athlete in our world today at 145 pounds.
Yeah.
Playing football, playing basketball, playing baseball. It ain't happening.
That's why all the best athletes in fighting are at that weight at 155.
Bingo, because they don't have the same.
They can't be in the NFL. They can't be in,
That's it.
None of those guys are dunking a ball. I'm sorry, man.
Fighting is a way to, hey, I can fight and I can be a professional athlete. And and there's a ton of good people at it. But when you get into the 145 for women, there's just not that many. The one thing Bellator has done is they've created a pretty good stable of 145-pound female featherweight fighters that Chris can fight. Yeah. And look I think Julia, people could talk. Julia Budd's a great fighter.
Yep. Her only 2 losses are to Amanda Nunes and Cyborg. Those are her 2 losses.
No. Amanda Nunes and Ronda Rousey. She got armbarred by Ronda Rousey. Yep. So she's never fought Cyborg, and look,
she's a different fighter though. Also, since she's fought
absolutely
Ronda and
absolutely,
and
She finally, at this point, in my opinion, there's a confidence behind her. And we talk, how many times can you talk about confidence? She's kind of got it now. Hey, I'm good.
Let me remind. I want people to understand this is guys that were in the UFC, okay, like myself, and guys, Robbie Lawler, guys that had been there and then left, reinvented themselves, came back even better. Julia Budd, I feel, is that same person right now. She been around, fought all the best people. Now she's here doing this, and her confidence is at an all-time high. And we talk about confidence being, that's what you need in fighting. That's what you need in sports in general. Like in life, you should be a confident person. And for her, she's matured into a very confident athlete. And I feel like the people that Scott had signed with Strikeforce, they came from UFC or from Pride, like, Robbie came over from Pride and Elite XC and those guys, KJ Noons.
Yep.
They came from another organization, and then Scott built them up, built them as stars. They became really confident in who they were. Nick Diaz.
Look, Nick Diaz was in the UFC, got released from the UFC, goes to Strikeforce, has some incredible fights, becomes the champion. Dude, his fight against Paul Daley, 1 round.
Yep.
One of the greatest rounds of all time.
To me, the greatest 1-round fight I've ever seen.
Yeah.
To me,
unbelievable.
And that was, sadly, it was right after the UFC had taken over. That was the very first fight that they had actually.
Yep.
Because I remember Dana Lorenzo being in the front row for that fight, right at the cage, and they were just in shock. And I'm like, Strikeforce fights are better. As a Strikeforce fighter at the time, I was like,
that fight had it all.
Yeah. It was a great fight.
Look at those body shots, and then Paul Daley comes back. He got hit to the body so hard. I heard all of his air go, just out, and he's going.
It was crazy though, because he rocked Nick in that fight. Dropped him to his butt.
He hurt him twice. He dropped him to his knees at one part, but he got hit to the body, and instead of just curling up, he just starts winging shots, and that's when Nick hits him with a big shot, and he falls over. But man, what a fight!
It was. Yeah, like I said, to me, that's still the greatest MMA fight and best 1-round MMA fight I've ever seen. Just a great fight, man.
Yep, incredible.
Both of them, the shit talking, the energy in the cage at that fight.
I always hated the stupid ref cam thing they wanted to do, and this is the time right here. I wish I had a ref cam on. Because he gets hit with that freaking left. He gets hit with right, left. And he goes like this, and his right eye is looking straight up at Nick Diaz, and his left eye goes and goes over that way, and that's why I stopped the fight. And it was like, afterwards, you were trying to watch it, and everyone's like, "Oh, why did you stop?" I was like, "God damn it! I wish you guys could see what I saw."
Yeah,
but
it was a great fight, though.
Unbelievable. They're all like, couldn't you let it go for another round? Don't you think I would have liked to see another round, man?
But my
freaking awesome.
My point was that guys have left the UFC and they've come back and reinvented themselves. And the UFC, it just so happened the UFC got to basically take over the Strikeforce when they took over Strikeforce. So they got lucky with all the great guys that came back to them.
Hold it. The Strikeforce, that company that didn't couldn't even compete with the UFC as far as the fighters and stuff, that they all became champions. Almost
all of them did. It's
amazing,
crazy.
isn't it?
And they were all really good. I mean,
that's the part that, when you talk about fans, I look at marketing, everything. The UFC is phenomenal. Okay, they do a great job of making people believe that they have everything. Okay, but trust me, depth-wise, they absolutely have everyone beat, hands down.
Yep.
But when you talk about the top 5 fighters in other organizations, and this is where fighters know because they cross-train. Mm-hmm. And how many times have you fought with trained with someone, you go, "Oh, that dude's a monster."
Yep.
And guys know, guys that are UFC champions know the guys in other organizations because they'll train with them and go, "Oh shit, this dude's a beast." Mm-hmm. And that's just the way it is. The fans don't get it, but the guys that are the top guys out there, man, you can just interchange them all. And I honestly believe I could take the top guys, UFC heavyweights, Bellator heavyweights. If you allow me to match them, I can make the UFC guys beat all the Bellator guys, or I can make the Bellator guys beat all the UFC guys. Mm-hmm. Because fighting's about matchups.
Yeah.
And it's just who you match up against who.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way I look at it.
No, I agree 100%. I just think that these guys, because there was a lot of criticism because when Cyborg came over, well, who's she gonna fight? She's gonna fight Julie, but because she has one fight over there. Like, she's leaving UFC because she doesn't want to fight Amanda Nunes. But I also played golf with Scott a week ago, and he said, I'm gonna throw it out there.
I don't play golf with Scott.
Yeah.
Scott's never invited me to play golf. What's that like? No,
you live in Tennessee, that's why.
Okay.
He's gonna throw it out there. Look, we signed her. You talked about she didn't want that fight. Let's make that fight.
Oh yeah.
There's not let's talk about we have the number 2 girl apparently because she lost to her. Okay, you have the number 1 girl. Why not? Let's make that fight. I mean, Scott's proven that he's willing to cross promote. We do
Absolutely.
it with Ryzen,
but Dana will not do that.
And we've done it before with we did it before with Pride when I was with Strikeforce, and he put me over in Pride and Dream. I fought in those other organizations. Gilbert, we brought Aoki over to fight Gilbert. We've cross promoted in every single time with the Japanese organization, and that's because Scott has a relationship with them. Scott's tried to have a relationship with Dana White and the UFC. I understand they've tried to have a couple conversations about maybe potentially having cross fights, but it's not going to happen.
No,
but just
definitely won't happen with a champion.
But if people are saying that Chris Cyborg left because she didn't want to fight Amanda Nunes,
that's ridiculous.
People need to understand the offer's there. Like, Scott Coker is willing to go ahead and do that. He's talked to, not just me, but everyone else. He's made it very clear, let's have Ryan Bader fight your heavyweight, Stipe Miocic. Let's have that fight happen.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't want that fight.
Of course not.
And he doesn't want Chris Cyborg
because
and Amanda
as
Nunes.
Soon as, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if it happened that Ryan Bader beats Stipe Miocic, all of a sudden, who's got the best heavyweight?
Yeah.
And he will never allow that to happen. And look, that's him protecting his promotion, and I can understand it. I don't like it because I would love to see those cross-promotional fights, but
what people have to, I keep saying, but people have to understand, what people don't understand, is that Scott Coker, sure, he's a promoter, but he's a fan. He's a real fan and a real martial artist. He's someone who's trained with Ernie Reyes Sr. for the last, I don't even know how long, forever. And it's been a long time. And a lot of people that work for Bellator, they've been with him since when they were working in his martial arts studios and his gyms that he had. They've been friends with him for the longest time. He's a very loyal person. That martial art type loyalty is what he looks at. That's probably why him and I have worked together for so long. Yeah. But like I said, I was trying to say is, it's out there. It's on the table. Scott has made that offer, not for Cyborg yet, but the offer I'm sure is there, considering the fact that he's made it for other champions. He said, why don't we have Patricio fight your guys' champion? Why don't we have Ryan Bader? He just said the other day, let's have Ryan Bader fight the UFC heavyweight. He's put that out there. The UFC is not willing to take that chance. So people are criticizing Chris Cyborg for leaving and coming here. You have to understand, if you're not comfortable in your workplace, we hear about it all the time, about people at workplace being bullied or sexually assaulted or just being harassed. Well, and she felt that way, and there's video of her feeling that way. There's no reason for her to stay there. There was never a reason for her to stay there. Sure, she wanted to fight the best girls, and she's still willing to do that, but why don't we do a cross promotion now? There's a reason. Now we have a reason to do it. She's willing to do it.
Look, you're always going to get some people they're just, they like the one product of the UFC, and that's great, man. I'm glad you like it, and it's awesome. I'm not going to sit here and say it's not. Yeah. But MMA is great everywhere.
Exactly.
And you got to be open to watch it because you're missing so many great fighters. I used to do fights over in Russia all the time.
Phenomenal.
People have no idea. Phenomenal. Look, there's some guys over there right now. There's one guy I would love to get over in Bellator, but he is a monster.
Let's not bring his name here.
Yeah, I won't bring his name up. But there's guys over there. They can fight. They are good. and no one knows who they are. Yeah. But so as soon as you say something about, they couldn't beat so and so, yes, he could. Absolutely. I'm not saying he would, but he definitely could, because he's that good. Well, and those guys are out there.
If they want to take a chance and look it up and see, Demetrius Johnson was considered the pound for pound guy for the longest time.
Yeah.
Okay. Take a look at the problems he's having over on one.
Oh yeah.
Those guys are tough,
Hell
scrappy,
yes.
nasty, and good. I mean, sure, he's winning, but
they're good with the rule set that he's still figuring out. Yeah. Because look at that rule set changes things, and look at Demetrius is an incredible athlete. I love watching him fight. I said it, from day one. I will put money down to watch Demetrius Johnson fight every time, because he was that good as far as, especially in the UFC, as a defensive fighter. He reminded me of a Pernell Whitaker, a guy that was so hard to hit. He didn't ever take damage, and going against really good fighters. And I was just like, he amazed me in what he could do. But yeah, he's taking some shots.
Yeah. I'm kind of sad we didn't get to see him fight Henry Cejudo that
third time. Yes,
but I think they wanted to get him out before that fight was ever to happen.
Yeah, well, and look at, again, personalities.
Yeah,
he had some personality problems. He's not a boisterous guy, and he's very quiet and just a family man. But he had some personality issues with some people, and he wanted to get away from him.
Smart man.
Yeah.
What's the next one?
Let's go.
All right. For the love of fight asks, if there was one rule you could get rid of, and this answers your thing from earlier, in UFC fights, I'm assuming they mean MMA, what would it be?
Let's see.
If there was one rule we could get rid of.
One rule in the UFC.
Yeah.
One rule in the unified rules of mixed martial arts. Okay, we got it.
Yeah, my one rule would be for them to get rid of elbows on the ground. I would
take them away.
Take them away. That would be it. I would like them not to be there.
So you want to add a rule? That's not take away a rule.
Okay, if I had to take one away,
you're adding a rule there. You're going back to old Strike
Force. If I had to take one away, I would take the knees to the head on the ground. I'd be allowed to knee you on the head.
Hold it. You want to take away elbows,
because elbows cut. Knees don't. They
but elbows do certain things.
I agree. Elbows on the feet, I'm okay with. Elbows on the ground, I'm not okay with.
Why?
Because
what's the difference?
Because I felt like Strike Force didn't have elbows on the ground.
I know, and in a lot of ways, it slowed the fights down. Wow. Oh yeah, because you can take and you grab my wrist. Okay, and we have had it. There's certain guys, and I can go back to pointing guys out that have
we have totally different opinions on this.
And you'll sit there and see a guy that cannot do anything. In fact, one time I had a fight. Mike Kyle fights Bigfoot Silva.
Yes.
And Mike Kyle hits Bigfoot with a right hand that got him wobbling, going down.
Yeah.
Kyle goes after him. He broke his right hand on that shot. And then he goes after him. He's hitting with the left, and he breaks his left hand. And Bigfoot kind of makes it through it and has him in his guard, and he's holding on to Mike's. And Mike starts taking his head, and he's hitting his head into the sternum area of Bigfoot. And I go, Mike, stop that. You cannot use your head as a striking instrument, right? He goes, John, both my hands are broken. What am I going to do? Right? And it's like, he's got nothing he can do, man. He's screwed. If you get a guy, you can take and you can roll that elbow, so you can always make it to where you want to grab my hands, I can still hurt you. Where if you take them away, you can slow the fight down more by being that guy that's got that Antonio McKee grip, guys that have big hands and have that grip and can slow it down. It can make for a much slower fight.
See, I'm glad you pointed that out to me, because I'm open to hearing this type of stuff. To me, I always felt like, because there was no elbows on the ground, anytime I was on bottom, the guy had to posture up to punch me, which gave me more space to get up to my feet or to cause a scramble.
Absolutely.
And the same thing for me when I sat up on someone that started ground and
pounding. That's if someone's trying to strike you and going after, giving space. I'm going to posture to try to bring that punch.
But if there's no elbows, then they have to do something.
No, because what happens a lot of times, and I did a lot of Strike Force fights, guys would start to just hold, and they would do the body shots with the hands, body, head, all that. And a lot of fights kind of got slowed down. Not all. I'm not saying it all. Look at one of the worst elbow strikes, cuts, Bobby Southworth. He was fighting Babalu in Strikeforce, and Babalu brings a standing elbow over the top and cuts him straight up and down the eye here, man. Nasty one, And so look, elbows. If you're gonna take them completely out, I say, okay, I understand why you want to take them out. But if you're gonna have them standing, then have them.
Yeah, I guess this is where we're talking about where fighters, we think something differently than a ref would think, or judges, or whatever the rules system would think. Because for me, I always felt like I base it strictly based around the way that I fight.
Yeah.
And I felt like every time I postured up too much, I had to have more control. It was to throw big strikes. And that gave my opponent time and space to escape. Yeah. Same thing for me. Is I was like, okay, wait for him to get up and go ahead and posture. When he postures, I'm out of here. So it was kind of like my idea of how I was going to get out. So I always felt like the action was so much faster, and just everything just seemed like it was always moving. I never had a chance to breathe or move, like to stop moving, because they were going to start punching me. With elbows, I felt like I also judged it too from the Sean Shirk days, when he would just hold an elbow, and guys would get cut, fight would get stopped by a cut, and it was like, all right, it was a boring fight, and the elbows didn't really do much. They cut him, and that was it. That was the end of it, and it should have been a lot better of a fight.
Yeah, it could be. I would tell you, if I was going to change one rule, it would be I'm going to add an elbow, and that the whole stupid straight up and down, that is not a foul. Okay,
but to the top of the head, no.
Top of the head is fine.
Okay.
Yes. You can't do it to the back of the head. You can't do it to any illegal area, but the top of the head is a legal area for you to attack with anything right now. So the problem with the rule is, and again, you have to go back and understand, when we wrote the unified rules back, it was April of 2001. I was the guy sitting there trying to put things in a position where I could look and say, okay, I can make that work in a fight for me. Because I had a bunch of promoters, for the most part, that were there, giving their ideas, and commissioners, executive officers from different commissions. But, we had a doctor, his name was Dom Coletta, and he said, he had watched Gan McGee against a guy named Brad Gabriel, and Gan McGee's bringing these, he's 6'11" against a 6 foot tall guy, and 330 pounds compared to 215 pounds. Yeah. It's a mismatch. So
it was huge.
He didn't like the elbows, so it got to the point where I said, all right, so look it. So what we're saying is, you don't like this hand straight up and this elbow coming straight down. So if I do this, that's going to be fine. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so if I take my elbow and I bring it here, that's good, but not this one, right? Yes. And it was Lorenzo Fertitta at the time, because I was arguing, look it, and finally he goes, John, let it go. It's stupid.
Yeah.
And so, yes, sir. I let it go. It became part of the rules, and that's where I came up with, 12-6, because there was a clock on the wall, and then Joe Stevenson is in the, Ultimate Fighter Season 2, and I do his first fight against Marcus Davis, and we go over elbows, tell him exactly what he can do, and then he gets to the semifinals, and he's got Herb is going to be his referee, and Herb tells him, no, you can't do the elbows, you can't do this from guard, you can't use this elbow, that's 12-6. And John McCarthy says I can do it. And all of a sudden Joe Stevens is running out, because I'm actually doing, I think, Forrest Griffin's fight that night. And he says, Herb says I can't do the elbows that you said that I could do. And I go, I'll talk to Herb. Let me find out what's going on. I'll come back to you. Okay, Herb, what are you telling me? He goes, in guard, he thinks he can throw this elbow. I said, he can. I go, that's not 12-6. That's either 3-9 or 9-3.
Yeah.
He goes, yeah, if the clock's on the wall, but if it's on the ceiling, that's 12-6. Or when the fuck have you ever seen a goddamn clock on a ceiling? And so it was at that point, though, that I realized, okay, I understand this because I'm the one that came up with that.
Yeah.
And you can interpret this all kinds of ways. So and that was Herb. And I was like, so he goes, well, it makes sense. And I go, okay.
Yeah.
So
honestly, I always thought it was the same thing, too. Like, if I was in someone's guard, they weren't allowed to do that. I just assumed when I first started, when the rule was first implemented or whatever, I just assumed. I was like, you just can't elbow there. And I see guys doing it all the time.
Yeah, you
and
can.
I'm like, holy shit.
And that's the problem. And with a lot of fighters think they know the rules. They don't.
No, they don't know. We didn't know. Nope. No, I actually didn't realize that you could actually do that, I think, until probably till Tony Ferguson cut the shit out of my forehead all over, like just in the guard. I was like, bam, bam. I'm like, oh, this guy, what the fuck?
Yeah,
but It's true.
And you're looking at the referee going, what the fuck are you going to do about that? And the
nothing.
referee's going, nothing. It's
Nothing.
legal.
It's legal, yeah. All right, let's do, how many more you want to do?
Don't matter to me. I'll sit here all night. I'm having fun.
All right,
I'm just talking MMA.
I'll wind it down for you a little bit then. Azel Deco asks, if you were both on death row, what would be your last meal?
Wow. Death row, my last meal. Man, it's going to be something simple. And my daughter's street tacos because, God damn, I
haven't had them yet.
See, I grew up in a Hispanic area. I am a Mexican food junkie, and I'm trying to eat healthy. So my daughter can make like cheese shells and stuff, and it's still fantastic. So
they have their own food truck, right? Is what you're saying?
That's her plan. She's going through. My daughter just got out of the military. She's going through culinary school right now, and they want to do like a food truck, taco truck thing. That's what's going to make them happy. I'm 100%.
And where do they live?
They live in Knoxville, Tennessee now.
Oh, they do. So they moved. Weren't they in Alaska?
Yeah. They were up in Fairbanks. She
Like,
was in
I
the
don't know if
military.
you eat tacos up there. But.
Oh yeah, but Tennessee eats tacos, man.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. I just heard something about LeBron James trying to trademark copyright Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday. What the hell is that?
I'm like, there's a couple places that originally started the whole Taco Tuesday. They've been advertising
It's
it
like,
for
dude,
years. No
where
way
do guys all of a sudden come up with?
Yeah.
I'm trademark because what? Because you got a lawyer?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
You got a lot of money. You think you can do it?
Crazy.
What a knucklehead.
What would be yours?
I'm a steak and potatoes guy, man.
Yeah, good steak.
Yep, I would need a good steak.
And you're gonna buy me a good steak coming up.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
baby. I
believe
didn't forget that one.
Yes.
If it wasn't where we're at, I'd let it go.
The
man.
grill's good.
Dude, it's really good.
So good. I'm surprised. Like honestly, like you don't think of like a hotel restaurant having great food. But then if you go to the Marriott across the street, there's another place called the Acadia. Yeah. Anyways, there's a restaurant there that's pretty damn good too. That's a good steakhouse as well. So both places are really good.
Yeah, I love.
I shouldn't have told you that. But yeah, the grill is good though. I know, but they're both very good.
Yeah,
very. And the Morton's is right across the street too. So you have Morton's, Acadia, and the grill. All three of them, all within like I can throw a stone to it. It's good.
Yeah, whatever that last meal, it would definitely have to be something really spicy. So as I die, I am blasting out gas that's affecting everybody.
Yeah, it's lovely. No, I'm a steak and potatoes man. I'd be like steak and potatoes, and and probably some sort of like French bread.
Okay, I was gonna say, don't tell me you're gonna do a vegetable. Not in your last meal.
You know what's funny is it depends on where I'm at, but at Morton's I really like their asparagus with their what's it called, like Himalayan salt on it.
Yep.
Oh, so good. And then Acadia has a very good what are those potatoes they're like thin sliced. Oh man, potatoes au gratin. Yeah, with the cheese and the so.
See, but that's
good,
not the potato that's good; it's the cheese. That's
yeah, whatever, man. I was still good. Next.
All right. MMA Slam asks, this question is for you both. What is your dream fight regardless of era? Like if you had a time machine, the one fight either would love to see. Examples: Igor Vovchanchin versus DC, Mark Kerr versus Brock Lesnar, Sakuraba versus Ben Askren. Random picks, but you get the point.
Oh, I don't know. Give me a second to think about that. I'm pretty man. Honestly, now because we talked about BJ Penn the other day, BJ Penn and Khabib.
Okay.
BJ Penn and Khabib. You want to know why? Because I think the BJ Penn that beat Kenny Florian and beat Sean Shirk, that BJ Penn gives Khabib a very, very hard time. His flexibility, his dexterity, his balance on defending the takedown, phenomenal. And the way he gets to people's back, he showed it against Matt Hughes. Guys, if you shoot a shitty shot on him, and with his flexibility, he's already on your back.
Yeah.
And on your back, he's nasty.
It's funny. It's close. One of the fights that I always wished could have been put together, and there was a difference in the size, it was BJ against Sakuraba.
Yeah.
I thought that would be just a cool fight.
Yep.
Just a cool fight because Sakuraba had he didn't do jiu-jitsu. He did catch wrestling. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's a different style. It's similar but different, and the way he entered into things was different. And there was something crazy about. I wanted to see that style because it had to end up on the ground, in my opinion, of Sakuraba's catch wrestling style versus BJ Penn's jiu-jitsu style.
But when you bring up that by cross promotion rules. Different rules, different settings. Like, that's the thing. Pride rules were different than UFC rules.
Yeah.
BJ was used to fighting the UFC rules. Rob was. Which rule set would you go with?
Well, I would go with the Pride rules because BJ had left the UFC and he was fighting in Japan and he was fighting at Rumble of the Rock and there was different rule sets there. So I would just go with, hey, go over to Japan, do that fight. I always wanted to see that. I don't know why, but that was always a fight I wanted to see.
It was funny. I was there live watching Takanori Gomi and BJ Penn in Rumble on the Rock. And I went out there to support BJ. And the funniest thing is when Gomi was there and they were doing the rules, and they said, and the Japanese and Gomi's corners were asking, they said, hey, so like knees to the head on the ground, and the rules were already set. It was supposed to be like the unified rules, the UFC rules. And then when Gomi asked, like, knees to the head on the ground, and BJ was like, he's like, yeah, of course. And then he goes like head stomps, and BJ without even flinching goes, of course, like he didn't care. Yeah. And that, like, I just wish that like everyday fans could have seen like that type of mentality when he fought Lyoto Machida, and Lyoto was like 220 pounds and BJ was like maybe 185. Yep. And just it didn't matter. He fought Henzo and he fought Rodrigo, who were both bigger than him. Yep. I wish people could. I know that happened in Rumble on the Rock and his organization, but I just wish people could really see all the cool shit he did outside of that and how he actually changed the sport. But yeah, to me, that would, like, for me to see the Khabib fight or a Khabib fight in BJ, or even just the Conor McGregor and the BJ, because BJ had some big dogs. He had heavy hands. We saw that against Uno.
The other fight that I always, in prime, I would have loved to have seen an in-prime Fedor against an in-prime Cain Velasquez.
Ooh.
That would have been a great fight.
You just got me.
That's a great fight.
That right there is probably, that one's right there up there with me. Yeah, for sure, 100%. Because his wrestling would have been kind of nullified against.
It would have been interesting.
And jiu-jitsu, I would have given the edge to Fedor.
Oh, yeah.
Fedor,
submission-wise, I give it to Fedor, but there's areas that it just very interesting. Because look at Cain entered in certain ways and was fast.
Yep.
And that's what made Fedor so good at the time. He was fast. Mm-hmm. And so it would have equated out, and I really would have loved to have seen both of them in their prime if they could have matched up.
Very fast twitch. He was very that guy that you just didn't realize how fast he was, I think, until you got in there.
Yep.
And just watch the explosion. So.
All right.
You guys want to run through the contest?
Yep. All right, let's run through the contest. So we were talking about doing a contest. We are looking for someone to do caricature.
We're looking for someone to draw something that actually looks good.
Okay.
Right? We don't want the ugly crap. Okay, you got to be. Don't send me your third grade, drawing of me. I've already had that done.
Unless your kid is third grade and he's a really good drawer.
Yeah, if he's really
go
good,
right ahead.
that's it. But we want something for the show, something that we can put out there, get some T-shirts. Look at the good-looking guy, the ugly-looking guy. It's okay. I don't mind that. But we figured a good caricature of us for the show, having shirts, and we will benefit from that, but we're going to make you benefit because we're going to give you some cool swag.
So the swag, we're going to go ahead and get you laced up with some MMA swag, whether it be Bellator, whatever we have in our old stock.
I promise you, I will give you historical memorabilia.
Yep.
Will be part of the package, something that no one has.
Yep.
That you can have. So may not be worth anything to you, but it will be worth something.
Yeah, I've got some old school fight shorts signed. I've got some old school gloves signed, Strikeforce and UFC from UFC 42, 44, 46, 49.
I remember those.
Yeah, I've got old school stuff. I've got old school posters signed by all the fighters. So from Strikeforce, UFC. First time I was in the UFC, second time I was in the UFC. So we got the old school stuff. So, we haven't really sat down and figured out which old school stuff we're going to part ways with, but we are interested in going ahead. If you guys send us over some designs, we love it. We use it. If we use it, we will send you over some swag packages, maybe a couple bobbleheads and everything else, whatever we have in our old storage unit that we want to, try to part ways with.
So I'll just clarify some of the rules there. So, design a caricature of Josh and Big John. Email it to contestwip, that's weighing in podcast, so contestwip@gmail.com. And Josh and John will go through once we have a good selection, and we'll pick a winner from there, and then we'll let you know.
So should one of us repeat what you said because it's in English?
Well, don't you do it because you slur a lot after
do.
that headbutt.
I do, yeah.
Oh, it's all
it's not
after
just
that
the
ugly
headbutt.
it's all
headbutt.
that head trauma.
I'd like to say it was just the headbutt, but it wasn't.
At least I know how to beat you in a fight now.
Yeah, so we are also going to film again on Sunday.
Yeah, we are.
We're going to film again on Sunday before
After
you guys fly
after
out,
the
right?
fights.
Have you in studio again, and we'll try and maybe get a couple more questions. But, of course, we're going to cover the Bellator show. That will be
And
Khabib.
the UFC.
we'll talk about that.
Because there's a couple in there. It's going to be good.
It's going to be a good
Just
card.
that, look, your Saturday, dude, you got fights in the morning. You got fights at night. Saturday's a good freaking day, man.
It's so fun. People were hitting me up saying like, "Oh yeah, I don't know if I can make the fights." Like the UFC fights are the same night. I was like, you know what? I said they're the same day.
Yeah.
They're not the same night. I
The
said,
main card is at 2 p.m.
Yeah. So we'll when ours start at what?
Our
4:30 or 5?
The prelims start at 4:30.
4:30. Yep. Our first card's at 4:30. Yeah.
And we only have 20 fights.
Brutal, man. It's gonna be a long one. It's gonna be good though. It'll be good, but it'll be long. But yeah, so if you guys check it out on the Zone and on just on the Zone.
The
Just
Zone.
only the Zone tonight. Zone on Saturday night.
is the Zone.
So if you guys haven't subscribed to them, go ahead and hit the subscribe button on that for the Zone. Also hit us up on the IG, so you can hit me at The Real Punk on Twitter and Instagram. Also follow us on @WeighingIn, @WeighingIn Show on Instagram, and then hit our YouTube channel. Okay, so that is also Weighing In. All right, Big John.
Hit me up on Twitter or Instagram with John McCarthy MMA and do exactly what he said with all the stuff for weighing in.
You guys just make sure you also, I like to say, when you guys go to the YouTube channel, hit the little thumbs up because that shares our videos to everyone else that may like MMA. So when you guys do that, it just, when you start scrolling through, like I was looking through Dave Chappelle the other day, all the other Dave Chappelle stuff came up of people like hitting the thumbs up. So it ends up showing up on my feed. So then our stuff will show up on other people's feeds as well. So do that for us as well as hit the subscribe button and refer us to other people as well.
Please.
So, all right.
Take care, guys.
That's a wrap. Thanks, guys.
Bye.